Bold.
Cheeky.
Flashy. Gallus.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Gallus Podcast for Film and TV Wrestling Month edition. My name is Ryan Robertson, the host for this episode, and today I will be talking to you about, well, wrestling. As obviously has been made pretty clear, there's going to be a monthly wrestling podcast on the TV and film show. This has been a hard 20 seconds of speech, by the way. It's been quite challenging, and we've seen one recently on Wrestle Kingdom. There's a few coming up on specific shows, some reactions, some watch-along stuff. But I've thought it'd be nice to just have a sit-down 20-30 minutes to basically just tell you what wrestling means to me, what wrestling means to Ryan Robertson. And that is what we are doing today. I don't know how to start this spiel, so let's just talk and see what happens. Professional wrestling to me is something that I fell in love with at the age of 5 years old. I received a present. It was a 2010 SummerSlam book, which showed you pictures and told you stories about Kane versus Rey Mysterio. It had something involving Randy Orton, whatever he was up to at that show, and it had the 7-on-7 elimination John Cena kills Nexus. At this point, the Nexus were my favourites because they looked cool. But also, Edge was kind of cool, and John Cena's John Cena. So that match actually, as much as it almost hurt a lot of people's view on professional wrestling because, Super Cena and all that, it's what got me in to wrestling. And over the next couple of years, I'd get the action figures, had hundreds of action figures. I only really knew wrestling through action figures. Watched the Manias up until 2014, which is when I properly went from being a child who had wrestling figures and had a couple of atlases to a fully fledged professional wrestling fan. My first major wrestling memory is watching 2014 WrestleMania 30, rooting my little head off for Daniel Bryan as I watched the entire show at my mate's house, Daniel, and that opening to Mania 30, because I knew who the guys were, but obviously I hadn't seen any of their stuff. They're just famous legends. I'm sitting and being like, maybe Bret Hart will be out next, maybe Ric Flair will be out next. Oh, absolutely adore that. Myself and Daniel would have our own little custom wrestling figure worlds. IWF was mine, the International Wrestling Federation. It had heavyweight champions that ranged from a custom wrestler called David Keatingson, who was an old Chris Benoit figure, because I didn't know Chris Benoit, to Heath Slater, who was an old Shawn Michaels figure, to Razor Ramon was a top star, Harper was a top star, and there was another one that I remember just forcing to them. Obviously Drew McIntyre, who I had a little terrible 3MB toy. Going into the shops and buying all the wrestling figures, 2 for $15 deal in Asda. Argos. I remember going up to Glasgow once and getting a Triple H and Cody Rhodes in the same, and that was peak. And by handshake peak, well, now I find that quite funny because it's Triple H and Cody Rhodes, and I'm talking to you currently, recording on the 6th of February. We want Cody, do we not? There we go, that's me censoring the swearing because there'll be no swearing in this episode. Daniel had the AWL, the American Wrestling League, I believe it was, and his top star was CM Punk with his 20-odd title reigns. We used to meet up at the park and update each other on what had happened in the world, if there'd been any big debuts, if there'd been any signings, because we did obey by rules. I had an Undertaker unbeaten streak. I had a Sting figure, of which was Cody Rhodes, who was just coloured in with black pen. I had Lex Luger win the world title at one point, and then he dropped it to Kane in the main event of WrestleMania, before they entered a feud with Finn Balor and Joe Hendry, a local British wrestler. It was all over the world. But my exposure in 2014 was a best of Raw SmackDown DVD at the end of the year, which caught me up. That Authority storyline, by the way, I cling to it. Sting's debut, the Dolph Ziggler, this Authority storyline, the Shield, they are my wrestling. They are my attachments to early wrestling. that's what early fandom Ryan was, along with TNA Impact when it was on Challenge. So kind of 2015 time when Lashley, Bobby Roode, you just finished the Nick Aldis, Magnus stuff. You've kind of got the GFW all the way from like 2015-16. TNA Impact was my jam. That was what wrestling was. I watched it weekly on Challenge. Watched the explosions, watched all of the YouTube content, was watching free matches, watching all the rumbles. That's a like core childhood memory. Watching old mini rumbles as they were called, with the Hornswoggle. Just kind of picking up history through these books, playing the video games, doing the 30 years of WrestleMania. That's what the early wrestling fan of Ryan was, but it all shaped me into the wrestling fan I am now, who has some pretty strong opinions. So let's talk about them. In terms of wrestlers that are my favourites, the wrestlers that I rant and rave about, there's obviously a lot, and it's obviously changed throughout the years, but I'm going to talk to you through maybe 5 or 6 of my favourites that have been my favourites for quite some time, and why. Firstly, Edge. Edge was not one of my favourites. He was always he was my favourite of the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression stuff, but I struggled to really, really like old wrestling. Not because I don't like old wrestling, but because I don't have the then and there emotional attachment to it that I do with modern wrestling. I care much more about JSO versus Walter than I do about Bret Hart versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13, because that match has happened and it doesn't affect me. The Walter JSO, I fucking love Walter. I've swore. I said I wasn't going to swear. Ah well, there's swearing in this fucking episode now. I really need to work on that, don't I? I get passionate about Gunta quite often. But yes, Edge, when he returned in the 2020 Men's Rumble, had that, just looking how he did, his look immediately skyrocketed him to my favourites. The emotion on his face when he walked through the curtain, the run he would have, the match with Orton, albeit not great, his promos, amazing. Since his return, his look, amazing. The greatest match ever, which is literally what it was called, with Orton at Backlash, was absolutely stellar. And then when his run went on to see him return at the Rumble, win the Rumble the year later, do the JSO match, the Bryan and Roman, then the Roman match, yeah, he's the best in the goddamn world. All of his matches were so good. The Judgment Day stuff that slowly but surely began to happen, and then his recent run of just banger matches, really just, I'll fight a Grayson Waller and a Sheamus over here. And now he's in AEW here as Adam Copeland, and he's fighting Suzuki, Dante Martin, Lee Moriarty, former TNT champion in a feud with Christian Cage, Bet Luchasaurus, promo after promo after promo. Adam Copeland, and he's got Metalingus. Yeah, he's one of my favourite wrestlers because A, his look, B, his wrestling style, his promos, his character, his charisma. He comes on screen, you as a person are captivated. His entrance theme again, did I mention his entrance theme? I did, but I just want to re-mention Adam Copeland's entrance theme. He is so goddamn good. Another one of my absolute favourites is Drew McIntyre. I am from Ayr, Scotland, which is where Drew McIntyre is from. Unofficially, it's where he's hailed from. So he's always been the guy, From the 3MB days of watching WWE, it was always Drew is from Ayr. From here, he's a former Intercontinental Champion, to him leaving, going on to the Indies, literally competing at the Citadel Gym 20 minutes down the road from me watching him beat Dave Mastiff live again, and then be in the same ring as Samoa Joe. Him showing up in Impact, showing up in TNA, winning the world title in TNA, being ICW champion, seeing clips of his return, hearing the man's promo, his voice, his ambition. WCPW as just an entity as he dominated that, won the world title, returned to NXT, claymore Oney Lorcan's head off. And you know what he did after that? He bloody bet Bobby Roode, won the NXT title, entered a feud with the Undisputed Era. and would go on to show up in 2018 on the main roster alongside Dolph Ziggler, win the tag belts. It was fine and all that. Had some good matches with Seth and Ambrose. But my God, when that behemoth won the 2020 Men's Rumble, when he won the WWE title, when he carried Lockdown on his back, that's when I went from being a fan of Drew McIntyre because he's from here to the fan of Drew McIntyre. His second run, amazing. His stuff with Sheamus, his stuff with Gunther this year, his promos, his feud with Roman is absolute breathtaking. His Lashley and Braun and the chaos there, every match he was in, he stepped up and, well, showed the goddamn hell out. I absolutely adore Drew McIntyre's work over the past couple of years. His stuff at the moment, when he's like now heel, just beating the crap out of Zayn, Jay, hell, shit talking CM Punk, shit talking Seth, shit talking Cody Rhodes. The man deserves the world title at WrestleMania, and this is me saying on the 6th of February, Drew McIntyre will leave WrestleMania 40 world heavyweight champion. I believe that. And I want it to happen so bad. Otherwise he will leave the company and go to AEW probably. But there's a wee documentary about Drew McIntyre, The Chosen One, that I watched a few times. It's got a shot of Green and Castle, and I'm pretty sure Daniel and myself are visible at Green and Castle on that said day. But the fun bit of that documentary is a little bit where Noam Dar talks about his old headmaster, computing teacher at the time, Mr. McLean, who had a charity match with Drew McIntyre at Belmont Academy. That is the school I went to, and that is my old deputy head, Mr. McLean. He told us that story, me and Daniel, on maybe day 5 of school, and it's true, I guess. It's only bloody true. Another one of my favourites is Lionheart. Adrian Lionheart McCallum. The best Scottish professional wrestler. The man's fae Cumnock, he's fae Ayr. He used to run PWE. Man broke his neck from a Styles clash, returned to the ring. The fans booed him, they called him a fanny. He started using the Styles clash, he faked neck injuries, but he'd go on to go from fanny to hero, and he'd win the ICW World title beating Jackie Polo. He would have his 9-month or so reign beating the best in the world before unfortunately taking his own life, passing away in 2019. Every bit of footage on the internet of this man is magic to me, and I treasure it and I watch it more often than I watch any other bit of wrestling footage. This Lionheart guy is someone that a lot of people need to know more about. They need to hear his story, because his dying few months, he was a fucking hero. Lionheart, forever a hero. It's what we always say. On to a more, nice, brighter, positive, fun note. Another one of my favourite wrestlers. In fact, I would tell you that this man is my 3rd favourite professional wrestler of all time. Goes by the name of Samoa Joe. Now this guy is a badass. I found out about Samoa Joe through TNA, as he was X Division champion. I believe it was a 3-way with some Japanese guy and Loki at one of the Bound for Glories. He would take the X Division title and he would run with it. The Beatdown Clan Joe was a part of with MVP. Bobby Lashley was opposed them? Yeah. Lashley was opposed to BDC. You had your Lokis, your Kenny Kings, but Joe was the badass front man before he dropped the X Division title to, I believe, Austin Aries, but he was just putting on banger after banger after banger, dominating and killing. And I was like, I like this guy. Then he shows up in NXT and beats the hell out of Kevin Owens. He seizes the NXT title from Finn Balor and goes on to do that stuff with Shinsuke. And at around about this point, I saw old Joe matches with the likes of Angle, the 3-way with Daniels and Styles, some singles matches with Daniels and Styles, some matches with Sabin, some stuff with Aldous, which was oddly bad, but I quite liked it. Then I unlocked his Ring of Honor catalogue, and oh my god, his Kobashi match, his Punk matches, his Danielson match honestly might be my favourite of the bunch. Like, I began to fall in love with Samoa Joe at this point. His main roster run, lackluster, but he did have some big heavyweight title feuds with the likes of AJ Styles and Kofi Kingston, which I always appreciated. He had that Roman match. He had some US title stuff, which was really quite fun, before eventually fading away into commentary, which was sad. Then he returned in Pet Cross. Then he left. Then he showed up in ROH, showed up in AEW, took that ROH TV title, ran with it. And his AEW run started up for his first year, might have been the most 50-50 of an AEW run. Owen Hart Cup final, tick. Unbeatable Ring of Honor television champion and general monster. Joe, what a weird thing that was, before he took the TNT title and entered God mode, Samoa Joe, with the Darby Allin feud. Give him a year. Give him one goddamn year. That CM Punk feud. Collision. And now I'm sat with Samoa Joe as AEW World Champion. Did not think that would ever happen. Like, if you'd have said, do you think Seth Rollins would be AEW Champion? Do you think Styles? Do you think Daniel Bryan? Yeah, fair enough. But never would I have guessed my boy Joe would be Uranagi and Pentagon and killing all these fuckers on national TV in his badass suit with his cigar with the AEW World title. Just living his best life. Killing Hook week in, week out, entering a feud with Swerve and Hangman, who I've not mentioned as two of my favourite wrestlers. But right now, they are red hot. And Swerve and Hangman, you know what? Let's just put it in there. They are two of my favourite wrestlers. Swerve Strickland, Killshot, his stuff with Evolve, his stuff with Lucha Underground, his stuff in NXT, his stuff in AEW. Yeah, Swerve in Our Glory. Like, yeah, he's in the top 10, but I wasn't going as big as 10. And Adam Page is the most in-ring and character, maybe one of the best wrestlers. He's probably 4. I don't know how I didn't mention him. Adam Page is definitely my 4th favourite wrestler. But this was about Joe. Speaking of favourites now that I've put a bit of an order to it, number 2 is Bryan Danielson. I mentioned it right at the start. The first main memory I have of wrestling was rooting for Daniel Bryan to win the world titles at WrestleMania 30. That monster video package is still something else. God, I miss the video packages. That one had Legacy and Monster on it. That is unrivaled in my head. That is ungoddamn rivalable. He then retired, and then he returned and immediately shared the ring with Sami Zayn, and it was fine. And The Miz, and Big Cass, and the greatest Royal Rumble. Oh, he's turned heel and he's WWE champion. And he so enters one of the greatest runs in recent memory of mine, is the Daniel Bryan, the retitle Kofi Mania, the tag belts with Rowan, and the Roman Reigns Murphy TV matches. That is Daniel Bryan. His match with Lesnar when he first wins the title. Every match the boy seems to be in was better and better than the last. Give him kind of lockdowny time. What does he decide to do during lockdown? Well, I'll tell you what Daniel Bryan does during lockdown. He works his ass off on SmackDown with the Shinsuke, Sami, Claudio, Drew Gulak stuff. Does his IC title stuff. Has that amazing TV match with Styles. Kind of doesn't do too much before finds himself getting popular. Has the amazing run with Claudio. Builds himself up, wins the Chamber. Challenges Roman, loses, and unfortunately leaves WWE after an amazing run before showing up in AEW fighting Omega, Nick Jackson, Hangman Adam Page, Rocky Romero, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, just you name them, the boy fought them in his first year. Then his second year arrived, and his second year, I guess he just decided to one-up his last one, have an absolute war with Hangman Adam Page, one of my favourite matches ever, soaked in blood, formed the Blackpool Combat Club, and then just again continued to do the best wrestling in the goddamn world alongside Mox, Yuta, Castagnoli. Until last year, he was going to be my second favourite wrestler of the year with his early MJF feud that he had. He had an amazing match with Kingston as well in his first year, like, for God's sake. The MJF feud, the Elite feud that the BCC would have, the Okada, Zack Sabre Jr., Swerve Strickland, Christian Cage, all of these matches Danielson would just cycle through last year. The Continental Classic, the C2, as he's got a feud match with Brody fucking King. Meanwhile, Danielson also has a backlog of Ring of Honor gold with your Joes, with your Kentas, with your Nigel McGuinnesses, with your Takeshi Morishimas, with your mind fuck wrestlers. He does good wrestling all the time. Every Bryan Danielson match you will watch will be good. His feud with the Dark Order is like real tweenery energy. Bryan Danielson is the second greatest wrestler to ever live, if not the greatest wrestler. I just have a bigger favourite. So let's just attempt to throw this into more of a coherent top 10. We'll go for Swerve Strickland, Drew Lionheart, Edge, Adam Page, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, which leaves merely one question. What is professional wrestling to me? And who is my favourite wrestler? The answer to that is the Black Swan, Cara Noir. It's a weird one, that. It's really, really personal taste based, this. You got a guy called Thomas Dawkins who does alright acceptable wrestling. Before all of a sudden I see a match, Thomas Dawkins versus Pac. This man comes out in to Swan Lake in makeup with the black trousers, barefooted, face paint of Swan Lake, the most eccentric looking entrance I've ever seen. Before Pac comes out in one of the most beautifully shot matches for Riptide, well done Riptide, before he puts on one of the weirdest character studies in a single match with his handshakes, his love, I think, for Pac, before he eventually would lose, before being called out by a guy called Spike Trivet. I'm sure this won't be important, but my God, I fell in love with this one. And then when I heard that Chris Brooks has chosen for natural selection or whatever it is, the Progress Tournament, natural progression, that was again hard to say. And I see his match with Dan Maloney and his match with Scotty Davis. Then the next night I watch him fight Pete Goddamn Dunne and have the near falls of a lifetime in Alexandra Palace. The Cara Noir is real. My love for Cara Noir became real. He then had 3 amazing back-to-back-to-back matches with Ilya Dragunov. I believe they fell in love. I adore the Dragunov Swan story until, sadly, Eddie Dennis would be injured and Cara Noir would beat 4 other men named Kyle Fletcher, Paul Robinson, and my God, Dragunov, to be crowned Progress World Champion. The world would end soon after, and when Progress returned, every couple of weeks, month after month, Cara Noir put in the goddamn work. Dan Maloney, Luke Jacobs, Elijah, Dean Allmark, Nick Riley, Chris Ridgway, beating the best Progress had to offer him. Man like DeReiss, Malik, meanwhile ticking away in the background as a feud with Spike Trivet. Progress would become back in person and he would defeat some insane names again. Dean Allmark, Shane Swerve, the realist Strickland in one of my favourite, in fact might be my favourite match of 2022. But my God, it pales when he would unfortunately drop the title to Jonathan Gresham, thanks to Spike Trivet. He would fight Ilya Dragunov and win, and then the Spike Trivet feud happened, as he would lose the rights to the Black Swan in an amazing I Quit match that has inspired me so much. And he would fight for them back, he would gain them back, and he would ultimately gain a chance to fight Spike Trivet for the world title merely last year before falling and having what I believe is a career-threatening injury. The boy also stepped in the ring with Will Ospreay. The boy tours the world. He's been to DDT where he fought the likes of Yuki Ueno, followed Chris Brooks, who was half of the reason not for the Black Swan. The Black Swan, if you Google the artwork, the photography associated with this man is something I want to replicate. The emotions Cara Noir can conjure in you, these shots of him and Spike Trey, the parallels, all of this stuff is stuff I desire, I crave to replicate in my own filmmaking, in my own artwork, in my own art style. The Black Swan is the best wrestler in the world because he makes me feel things no other wrestlers make me feel. He makes me feel emotions I can't even begin to comprehend. The videos on his channel, the really morbid, weird sense of humour the character might have, the fact he's a mute and will not talk. He does all this and he doesn't even say words. The Black Swan is the best gimmick in professional wrestling history. Promotions wise, I don't really watch any religiously. I keep up with WWE. I watch all of the pay-per-views with Daniel as and when they happen. My thoughts are mainly I don't like Cody. That's where my thoughts on WWE kind of end. I really like Damian Priest. He's my favourite guy going in the WWE. I'll say that much. So glad he's got 2 titles and a briefcase at the moment. I hope he turns that to 3 titles very, very soon and hasn't dropped the tag belts at Elimination Chamber, so this becomes null and void when it releases on the 29th, which isn't a real day most days of the year. Just thought it's kind of funny that I just wanted to release a podcast, didn't know what it was going to be, and I'll make it the rest of the month for that. I keep up to date with AEW, and again, if I see that Danielson has had a killer match, Swerve or Hangman have had a killer match, I'll watch them. Even Takeshita, I've watched a lot of Takeshita matches, but I don't watch it weekly. I keep up to date, and I watch those 4 if they have killer matches. I watch the pay-per-views though, because Joe never really has the TV matches. I watched his match with Hook, but I don't exactly watch a Samoa Joe squash match. And I watched obviously promos mainly, Joe's promos, Adam Copeland's promos, and the promos of Swerve and Hangman. And again, if someone says something's really good online, I might check out the 6-man Top Flight Action Andretti, Darius and Penta Commander Vicino match. I thought it was fine, not really my cup of tea. Love Penta, absolutely love Pentagon Jr. Ring of Honor is a promotion that I watch the pay-per-views of, and I'm always rooting for Athena. I will always be rooting for goddamn Athena. New Japan I watch mainly for Yota Tsuji and El Desperado at the moment. They are my little wrestling boys in Japan, and I want everything for those people. GCW I watched in lockdown because it kind of blew up then, and also I needed something to do. TNA is a promotion that I watch probably more than any other at the moment, watching most of their weekly shows because oh my god, they are always chaotic, and Steve Macklin is my dad. He's not. He's daddy. No, ignore that. I'm not going to cut that because I have literally no form of self-control. But yeah, I watch a lot of TNA. Another route that you can go down with this, just to get to know me, is favourite matches. I will give you a few. Like that Hangman Danielson 2, where they get really blooded, do a lot of headbutts. It has the judges in case it goes to the 6-minute time limit. Open Dynamite for 2022. That's one because yeah, damn right it is. It's amazing. The Walter Tyler Bate from Cardiff is a match that I rant and rave about a lot. It is so good. Walter Dragunov 1 is so good. Anything on TakeOver, the 6-man ladder match for the North American title, Damian Priest, Leon Ruff, Johnny Gargano, that's a favourite match of mine. David Starr, Jordan Devlin, 2 absolute arse pieces, but I really like the match and really like the story, but fuck him. Another match I adore, recent memory, Bryan Danielson versus Samoa Joe, ROH. Samoa Joe, AJ Daniels, non-surprisingly, Joe Kobashi. All of these are matches that I come to mind when I think of my favourite matches, but they're not my favourite match. Because my favourite match is the 2020 Men's Rumble for reasons of it's a goddamn fairy tale. Arsepiece Brock Lesnar dominates the entire match with little bits of like Keith Lee and Beige and Kofi and Ray. It goes to Brock's pass. Then Drew kicks his head over the top rope, goes apeshit mode and kicks the fuck out of everyone for the Rumble. You get the entrance of Edge, you get the amazing Orton stuff, and you get the ending of like Seth, Joe, Owens, Murphy, AOP, Aleister Black, who is quite a funny looking man, and then the big Roman and then the Drew win. It's a fairy tale, and I've never felt so happy watching wrestling live. I actually felt more happy watching that than when Drew won the belt, even though I cried when Drew won the belt alone in my bedroom. Not even downstairs on the big telly. In my bedroom alone, I cried when Drew won the title. But when he won the Rumble, I just screamed, because for the past 2 years in a row I'd been predicting Drew to win the Rumble, just because fuck it. You'll learn that about my Rumble predictions. Who did I predict for the Rumble this year? Oh no, I predicted someone really... I predicted Beige, Sami Zayn, and CM Punk. I went down that route because I was like... But it was mainly Beige was my official prediction. The other two were like... If it happens, at least I've verbally said these two. I'm not going to get a point in the predictions war, of which I lost at the Rumble. But hey, I won the Survivor Series one, and CM Punk showed up. Survivor Series, he's back in the WWE and he's injured again. Fuck CM Punk. Where did I lie on the Rock Cody thing? I don't like Cody. I don't want to see Cody beat Roman. I don't care if Cody beats Seth, but I also want Drew to beat Seth, so I want them to do Cody, Drew, Seth. That's the most entertaining thing for me, and you know what, have Roman beat The Rock, or have The Rock win, because WWE for me is chaos. The more chaotic, the better. Do you know who the future of the WWE is? The future of the WWE is Trick Williams. Whoop that Trick, my boy. Whoop that Trick. I'm saying this the same day I watched Trick vs Dragunov from the pay-per-view, and I came. I should stop talking, shouldn't I? I've just said a K. Anyway, Swerve Strickland versus Keith Lee has never happened. Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee versus Taz, Team Taz, Hobbs, and Hobbs and Starks versus Jurassic Express Double or Nothing a few years ago. That was a fun match. Really liked that one. This is all over the place now. I'm so here for it. The Roman Drew, really liked that. What's Roman's best events? Roman Claudio is my answer to that one. Or Roman J1. Or Roman J2. Not Roman J3. What a trilogy. What do I think of The Fiend versus Seth Rollins? Fuck, I watched that. Didn't enjoy that. What is the worst match ever? It's Cody Brock. What one? Take your pick. I don't particularly care. I love Aussie Open. My favourite New Japan faction is the United Empire, but that's obvious, but the War Dogs and TMDK are very, very close seconds. The fact that Suji is now in LIJ makes me like LIJ a bit more, because I really like the Takagi. Other than that, I'm not fond of LIJ. The David Finlay, I'm on board with him as Bullet Club leader. Kenny Omega is a generational talent and a goddamn belter of a wrestler. MJF's world title reign was really, really, really good, but it was also really not my thing and really boring, and now it's on Samoa Joe, who is my thing and the opposite of really boring. TNA has Moose as its world champion for some reason, and it does not have Steve Macklin as world champion or Josh Alexander. One of those two men should be world champion, and they should just hot potato the belt between each other. The X-Division champion is still Chris Sabin, which I do not understand. However, I think Mustafa Ali will be politely taking that title when he challenges. ABC and Grizzled Young Veterans doing their thing is amazing, and I am so here for either to be Impact World Champion, Tag Champions. The Deonna Purrazzo in AEW is something that I am very excited for. The fact that Jordan Grace showed up in the Women's Rumble, and so did Trinity. Now Trinity is fully back in the WWE as Naomi again, made me very, very happy. The fact that Tamina, my favourite women's wrestler of all time, did not show up in the Women's Rumble made me very, very sad. The fact that as we speak tomorrow evening, Tony Khan may or may not announce that Mercedes Moné will be signing with AEW. The fact that Will Ospreay is with AEW in a faction with Takeshita, Aussie Open and Hobbs makes me very, very happy, because that is a faction. However, I would like Ospreay and Aussie Open to immediately leave the boys so we can see Ospreay versus Takeshita, and so Ospreay and Aussie Open can seize the trios titles from the bullshitty Acclaimed, who I have never liked. except from that one match where Anthony Bowens was amazing. Is that enough? I think you know my wrestling opinions now. Let me know your wrestling opinions in the episode descriptor below, and hey, if you want to say something to me, say something, you know? This has been the second monthly wrestling podcast, and just like the first one, it went very quickly. Mad. Don't worry, next month's will be more structured with a more interesting approach. I just wanted to do an episode where I kind of told you what wrestling is to me. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Ryan Robertson. Enjoy your week.